Once again, I'm very happy to introduce our next speaker, who has been making a difference since I was a little kid. I remember hearing about his work and being completely blown away. Not only because what he was doing was so important, but because he was like the coolest guy doing it. He is another person who needs no introduction, Mr. VID00025.
Thank you. This is the end of 3 or 4 long days, exceptionally boring. I was reminded by the reporter from Variety that I began one of the speeches this week with a deathless quote from Woody Allen. And Woody pointed out quite correctly that never before has mankind been at such a crossroads. Down one path lay utter extinction, on the other, hopelessness and extreme despair. He finished by saying, "Let us hope we have the wisdom to choose correctly." At the end of this week, we don't have to make that awful choice. For some people, though, what strikes us as funny tonight is the tangible, living reality. Now, all of us in this room, either on the very edge of our consciousness or at the very forefront of our concentration, has understood the proximity of poverty. And everything that Ray and Ted and Rania and Jeff and Tommy has talked about and will talk about is simply that. Ill health, lack of education, conflict, corruptions are simply symptoms of a singular, empirical, economic condition, that of poverty. Being singular, being empirical, being economic, it can be resolved. Not metaphysical, not intangible, there in front of us, there to be unpicked, unblocked, sorted, dealt with. So what we were engaged in this week was doing a final bit of unpicking. You see, in the year 2000, we were busy setting off our fireworks, building our redundant bridges, our ludicrous millennial concrete domes and structures. And one organisation, largely forgotten, largely considered not really part of the new century, a product of the post-war victors, the United Nations. A place where the great tribes and clans of our planet come together to shout at each other in a big room. That's of great value. We need to shout. Anyone who's been present in a domestic home knows we need to shout at each other, sort it out, vent. Better that than the venting of some bomb. So we shouted and we roared, but somebody had the clear sense to suggest that possibly we could be a little more elegant. It is a dignified universe, and surely humans were dignified creatures within that sphere. Why not? Why not look at the 50% of the world that were shuttered away from these celebrations forever? And why only 50%? Because it was doable. 100%, no, that's too far, too much. But this thing is doable. Unpicking it, they unblocked it into 8 structures of poverty. It's not enough, but it'll do for now. And then individuals decided to take those 8 structures and unpick them. And as they did, great Business leaders start saying, oh, I get this. Yeah, this is my sort of thing. Bottom line, baseline, I see the objective, I'm with you. The people who can tell the story, the singers and the actors and those sort of people, those people who find the language to make these noble ideas spring to life, to make you see there in front of you what you don't normally think about, or what is constantly paraded in the pornography of poverty across our television screens every dinner time. And so in this great elegant gift to ourselves, we said, let's do this thing. Why not? Now it isn't often reported, and this will not be reported. And if the last 4 days are reported, page 3, small section, cynical, jaundiced. But ladies and gentlemen, what we have done so far is beyond elegant. It's indeed noble. And what Ray, Ted and Rania have spoken about, and what the Stop TB people and the Gates Foundation and the One campaign and all these other NGOs, all these people, forget civic society, forget institutions, forget government. What these people have done for other people is magnificent. You see, the individual is reduced to saying, dude, let me give you a hand up there, because they've recognized pain and suffering and they've said, no, no, I don't want that. The most I can do is put the buck, in that little collection box. That's the most they can do, and it is magnificent. But if 1 million people put the buck in the box, that's political. Every one of those is a vote. And the wheel begins to shift. And so what we did this week, be under no illusion. We measured where we've got to, not nearly enough. Not bad really, disappointing. I've been at this game 26 years. I thought we'd be further along. But things come in that you don't expect, what is called in the language exogenous factors. Stuff. Shit happens. You keep going, and you groan at another MDG summit. You groan at another stuff you have to do. But this week, the collective ambition and will of all that giant hoopla put its shoulder to that big, heavy wheel that takes so much effort to turn. And tonight, it shifted. That big, heavy wheel is equity and justice. Not right. It's not right that somehow we constructed a school somewhere. Not right that somebody was prepared to go and teach those kids. Not right that those poor parents gave up their labor force so that their kid would have a future, not face down in a field scratching for a living. They make progress, and then a fly comes along and bites them. It's gone. All that creativity, all that productivity, all that dynamism, all that intellectualism that is there, that is ours, that belongs to us, that belongs to this world, and belongs to our family, gone. And ladies and gentlemen, we don't really do it for them. Truth is, we do it for us. What many of us have been saying for years is that this inequality, this asymmetry, is pernicious. It will destroy us, because instability is inherent in asymmetry. We had this giant machine of an economy, but we excluded half the world. That's a nonsense. It's asymmetric. You don't build a house with 2 corners, it falls over. It fell over. And what rescued us, what made it a shock rather than an existential crisis, was the poor of this world, the developing poor. Because without the Chinas and the Indias, we're bust. Today we heard about the liquidity of the African banks. There is no liquidity in the Western banks. Zero, none. They're bust. There is in the developing world. They saved us, and they saved us again. And the model is this: bring them all in. Bring all that creativity and dynamism in. We need it. We can't, in fact, do without it. So the last part of this journey, 2015, we set ourselves anew now to this task because it's worth it, because it's in our interest, because maybe we won't have to see the prurient pictures of starving and hunger and ill health and the TBs and the malaria and the polios, but tell the story. Stop and think. Polio. Polio. This timeless scourge of humanity. A breath away from being eliminated off the face of the planet. History won't record it, but books will talk about this thing and people in the future won't recognize it. Ray has set his face to eliminating malaria. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He may do it with everyone's help. Amazing. There is nothing comparable. So what you did, they did over there, what the press have ignored, is the great story of the beginning of our century. The African continent by 2040 will be, because it has no other choice, one of the great continental polar economies of our world. And that's not the bleeding heart liberal pop singer from Ireland talking about this. This is the McKinsey report. So for the next 5 years, Jeff has a differing view. I sort of annoy him by saying, I don't think we'd do all 8 of these acts, but you know, hey, I'll go along with you anyway and pretend we will. But we get some of the way there. And the next part of the journey, ladies and gentlemen, is to get the other 50% under this great roof, under this beautiful roof. Led by others, perhaps. Turner's too bloody old to stay the course, of course, you know. And to be quite frank with you, I may not get there as well. I'm sort of in Turner's camp. But together, as the cliche is, and you have to avoid the cliches, hard pounding. The cynics are wrong. We're winning. It does work. All the talking defines, redefines, confirms, reconfirms, projects, and implements. All of that works. I'm a pop singer. I've had to learn patience. I've had to learn incrementalism. He's never understood it. The wheel chips, imperceptibly, but it turns. We're the ones pushing the wheel. Let's rededicate ourselves to the next 5 years. Let's rethink what Goethe, the great German poet, said. Whatever you can do, or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, magic, and power in it. Well done.